Hi, hello, what is up? Welcome back. I don't know if I should say to the podcast. That is what I hope this will eventually all be, but welcome back. If I have never had the honor and privilege of meeting you, my name is My Unique, but you may know me as Instagram for Believers, and I owe everyone an explanation. And so, the hardest thing that I ever go through in life is actually starting something. I always have all these great ideas, and I'm like, I need to get this done, and I need to get that done, and I need to do this and that. And then I just don't do it. And that is my biggest demise. And so I decided to attempt to try this video, aka podcast relaunch, yet again. And so let's hope it all goes as planned. So let's backtrack a little bit. Back in 2020, I had launched a podcast called For the One, and it was incredible. I think that outside of people getting sick and passing away, COVID was some of the best times of my life because I had so much free time to make content, produce things like, little mini devotionals and like all of this great stuff. And truly for me was a grand time of life. And with that, I also ended up getting a job at a church that's here local. And long story short, it's a weird explanation, but when I started working for this church, I had already had Instagram for Believers. Instagram for Believers was something that was to the core of me since 2012. Like, it was very loud. It was very everywhere. I think at this point I had racked up over 100K by 2020. And, I was just posting. Like, it's not about numbers or anything like that. Like, it's just about me being able to do what God has gifted me to do. And so I started doing that, since 2012 and, through the power of the Holy Spirit, like, completely all God, like, this account has grown and take over to new heights that I honestly would have never imagined, like, at all. And so by the time COVID was passing, I landed this new job at a local church. I was a young adults pastor, and I was super excited just to be able to go a little bit deeper, learn a bit more, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I didn't expect was the amount of comments that would be made about having Instagram for Believers. And so I don't necessarily call myself an influencer. That's never really been my thing, but obviously growing up in social media world, like, you're categorized as an influencer. And so I started getting comments from people on our leadership team at this church about how Instagram for Believers was my focus. I remember getting called into the office, and there was a particular pastoral leader that would be like, My Unique, you're so focused on building an online brand that you're not helping us build the church. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, no, like, I love the local church. I love what God is doing here. I love, my job and all of that. And it just became all of these like conversations that would happen at this church. And honestly, you guys, like, honestly, people think I'm online all the time, and I'm really not. For the sake of my mental health, I'm really not online a lot. I post once a day on Instagram for Believers, which has been pretty consistent since I started it, but there are a couple of days that I miss. But I remember I would post one thing a day, and all of a sudden it was like the end of the world for a couple of people in these positions. And I wanted to do the God honoring thing by honoring the leaders in my life. And so I began to take a back seat with Instagram for Believers. I made sure in my brain that I would, not do too much during church hours, or, just kind of tone down things that I was posting. And not that it was anything bad or crazy. It was just like my normal routine for years before I stepped into this position. It was Instagram for Believers. Like, that was my ministry and it still is my ministry. Thank you, Lord. But I remember one time in particular getting called into the office because of a post I had made on Instagram for Believers. And I actually have it saved because this was one of the moments I think that like, I believe marked me in the way that I was processing. And so if you're watching, I'll post a photo on YouTube. But I remember posting this particular photo. It was August 31st, 2021. And simple photo of myself. I think I was like sitting somewhere at home, and I had put on the caption of this photo, 10 out of 10, ready to cry today, and it's only noon. I've been in a really heavy season and I'm not okay, but Jesus is. I've been back and forth with my emotions and praying for weeks. So here's to real life. I am not okay. Jesus is, and I'm okay with that. And I remember this particular post getting me called into an office and being told, my unique, you shouldn't have posted this. This might have been okay for an influencer to post, but it's not okay for a pastor to post this because you're putting the burden on people instead of carrying people's burdens like you're called to do. And I remember just like being disappointed in myself for that post, because I've always been known on Instagram for Believers for sharing real life. Like I from the moment I started this account have laid out all of the ugly, which is why people know that I've struggled with a porn addiction. That's why people know that I have daddy issues. Like people know that I've struggled deep with depression and anxiety. So for me, what has become normal of sharing my vulnerabilities online became a problem when I started being in the public eye of a local church. And I remember that post so vividly, and it's something that honestly still haunts me, is because I genuinely felt so bad. And I was like, man, like if God has called me to be the pastor, like I need to listen. I need to stop being so vulnerable online. I need to stop sharing things. And I did slowly but surely, as I stopped posting a lot on Instagram for Believers out of sake of not getting in trouble with certain people in leadership, because I wanted to be seen as someone who really cared about her job and really wanted to do it and really respected and honored the leaders that were pouring into my life. And so, over the next couple of years, Instagram for Believers ended up taking a back seat. I stopped doing my podcast. I stopped posting as much. I stopped doing YouTube videos. And again, I know most people will be like, well, why did you do that? Again, in my head, it was me trying to honor who God had placed in my life, because I'm just at the time, I think I was 20 something when I started, working at this church, but I was just a leader who was just eager to learn. And obviously if these people are in a higher position and this is where God has brought them, they're only just helping me in my life. The problem with that is, while there was some truth to a lot of what they were saying, I think it kind of started to get to me mentally. There became seasons where I honestly just stopped posting on Instagram for Believers altogether. I remember making a YouTube video like, man, like this is the end. I can't do this anymore, because my pastoral responsibility had gotten so much like higher. It had gotten so much heavier, and I needed to carry that first. And so over the last 5 years, I've honestly let Instagram for Believers take a backseat to whatever ministry God had me doing in person. And because of that, I just gotten this mental mindset that I don't need to share vulnerable things online. The problem with that is my whole platform is built on sharing personal things online. Like, I'm not getting crazy, but there are just certain things that I believe that the Lord has allowed me to share in order to encourage people and to help them. And as most of you know, if you still follow me, you would know that I no longer work at that church. There was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And if God ever wants me to share, I will. But there's something that has been bothering me over the last years. I was like, okay, it's okay. God is going to move. God is going to do. And he still does. But there was a part of me that was like, you know what? Now that I don't have this hovering over me anymore, it would be a perfect time to start my podcast again, because I really love being able to share online with you guys. I'm so honored and privileged to have the platform I do. And so I was like, you know what? It's okay. I can start making content again. I can start my podcast again, because these are things that have been sitting in my heart, just like at the bottom though, because again, I wanted to do the God honoring thing. So I thought by honoring leaders and making sure that all of that took a back seat. And so now that I'm a post year out of all of that, I have still been wrestling a lot with anxiety in my mind. And I'm like, what's happening? Why can't I do content? And I was sitting with my husband and I was talking, and I was like, I think I had gotten so berated over the last couple of years when it came to Instagram for Believers. It's almost like a part of me is ashamed to carry that again. And it's a weird thing to say, because this is my baby. Like, I was so young when I started Instagram for Believers. I'm still young, but I was talking to my husband and I was like, I still have their voices in my head of like, you shouldn't be saying that, you shouldn't be doing that. blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, it's been hard for me to kind of get those things out of my head. It's almost become an insecurity where it's like, I used to talk to you guys all the time. I used to sit in front of a camera all the time. I used to just share what God was doing in my life all the time. And those were just one of many comments that were made towards me over the year from people in pastoral leadership that I was just like, whoa, I'm clearly doing something wrong. Like, I remember months before I was even let go or fired, whatever you want to call it, I remember being told, my Unique, you can't be the pastor and the influencer. Like, you have to pick one. And I have never in my life tried to be an influencer. I just genuinely love helping people. I love encouraging people. And if me sharing my story does that, then that's what I want to do. But I remember just like leaving that meeting. There were so many of them, but I remember leaving that meeting, and as someone who genuinely loves High School Musical, it is my all-time favorite movie. I remember this moment. If you've ever seen High School Musical, there's this moment where Troy is realizing that he wants to sing, but he also wants to play basketball, and he gets into it with his dad. And this is High School Musical 1, and his dad's like, Troy, you're not a singer, you're a ball player. And Troy's like, did you ever think that maybe I could be both? And I remember that moment playing in my head of like, here I have this person that I highly respect and look up to, literally telling me, my Unique, you can't do it both. You can't be the online person, the influencer, the person that's traveling and speaking and wanting to write books. You can't be that person and also serve here in this local church. And I remember just like, why can't I do both? There are so many incredible leaders, pastors, people who just share online, and they're great at what they do, and they're also honoring to their local church. And I was like, why does it have to be this hard for me? And truth be told, I don't think that was ever God asking me to stop. I don't think that, but I think that I had wanted to respect certain people so bad that I was willing to give up on the things that I wanted for my life, and even the things that God has placed in my life, in order to please them. And so over the last year, I have been trying to unlearn and undo the people-pleasing mentality that I've had towards those people, even though they're no longer a part of my life. But it's just been so hard to unwork. And so that's why it's been super difficult for me to sit in front of the camera again. It's been super difficult for me to produce vulnerable content the way I want to, because, man, when I say we have been going through it, we have genuinely been going through it, and God has been good and faithful throughout all of it. But I'm like, the little bits that I do share, I'm always getting messages of people just telling me how they needed that. Me and my husband have been going through so much over the last year, from both of us being let go from our jobs literally the day after each other, to trying to figure out how is God going to provide, because we have bills. We also have a small child with us. And then after that, when the moment that I started to see a glimmer of hope, at the end of the July, early August, we had 1 month where I seen the bright side, and I was like, God is going to get us through this. And then by September, we get served paperwork because we are now entering what many people just call a custody battle, which made no sense. And so we have been in and out of court since September, mediations, court hearings, all of the things that you can think of, and trying to co-parent with someone that makes it really hard. You know what I mean? And so we have been in and out of court, which in and of itself is the most stressful process, because while we know that we are being blameless and doing what God has called us to do, it still doesn't stop people from attacking our character. It doesn't stop people from just causing a scene when there doesn't need to be a scene. And honestly, between that and then obviously having to pay for attorney fees, we've been in some deep trenches, and it's been really, really hard to say, God, we trust you with all of this. To be honest, I think both me and my husband, our faith has been shaken to a core, and we're just like, God, like, why are you having us go through this? When are we going to see the other side? And that's honestly been something that's been hard for me, is once I did end up leaving this church, because it was so wrong and a lot of people knew it was wrong, I had a lot of people reach out to me, and thank God for the friends that I kept throughout that process, because nobody talks about how hard it is to leave a church and leave a community that you thought would be there for your first year of marriage, for the rest of your life, et cetera, et cetera. And so there were so many emotions and things that we had walked through, so many hard seasons. My husband lost his best friend. He lost his grandma another week after that. And so it was just like, there's just been so much that we're just like, God, like, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Like, I know we just need to have the faith, but like, how are you going to do this? Because we have been in this whirlwind of emotions and our faith being up and down. Like, there have been so many days where me and my husband are just like laying on the floor crying out to God because we're both just have no words. We have no words other than to just cry out before the Lord and know that he knows our hearts, that he's hearing us. And so there have just been so much I have processed. And throughout that, something that I was even talking to the Lord about today, it was like there were so many people that was like, you know what, this was a God doing. Like, God removed you from that church for a very specific reason, and I know that it's going to come to fulfillment in the next year. And now here I am a year later, and I'm like, God, I don't see anything different besides my mental health being way better than it was when I was there. What is it? What is it, this thing that I'm waiting for? And so it's just been hard to have the faith that says, God, I'm going to trust you throughout all of this. Now, we have trusted him, but it's been hard. I'm talking trust that's hanging on by the hem of his garment. You know what I mean? And so about 2 months ago, I had this idea of like, I really love yellow. So there's a part of me that like when I was walking through my depression in 2019, I wore a lot of black. Now, first off, I just think black looks good on people. So don't think too much of it, but there was a part of me that genuinely just loved wearing all black, and it was my favorite color. And I also realized, though, I was super depressed. This was happened probably like 2019, and I remember one day I bought something yellow. Like, seeing yellow made me happy, and it just gave me like this glimmer of hope. And there was a season back in 2019 that all I did was like find little things that had yellow in it, and I would wear it. So I would wear a yellow, I had like a yellow sweater that I would keep around my waist, or like I had Vans that were yellow. Rest in pieces those days. I literally don't wear Vans now. And there was just something about the color yellow that made me really happy. And there's this theory that when girls feel safe, they start to embrace their femininity. I think that's how I say that. They start to embrace their feminine side because they're feeling safe and protected and loved. And I have never liked the color pink, like quite literally never have liked the color pink, but I started to really feel that about the color yellow. And so about 2 months ago, I was like starting to wear yellow again. I was starting to like see the glimmer, and me and my husband were talking about it, and there became this theme of like finding yellow. I did a post about it about a year ago of just like how I'm starting to see the hope again. I'm starting to feel encouraged again. And so I was like, that's it. That's the podcast. It's no longer for the one. Now, granted, I do believe that God always gives me a specific word for someone who needs the encouragement. Like, that's been the heart of Instagram for Believers for years. But I was like, I think in this new season, as I'm like talking about rebranding a podcast and all these things, it's about finding yellow, which sounds weird, but it's finding yellow is finding hope again. It's finding the Lord in the midst of the darkest hours that you guys are in, because I have been in it. And so I said, that's the name of the podcast that I want to redo, and hopefully get back to this place where I love making content again and sharing with you guys and being real, because let's be honest, none of us are doing this walk perfectly, but we're doing it, and it's better when we get to do it together. And so I am happy to be kind of returning to this space where I can film again and share openly, not personal, like I'm not sharing private information, but just sharing about what's been going on and what I've been processing with the Lord, because I have been sitting in silence over the last year. I have not said anything about a lot of things that I probably could. And I've just been really just in stillness with the Lord. And so I'm excited to start sharing that again. And so I say all of that to say is welcome back. If I have not met you yet, I hope that we get to meet. My name is My Unique. I run an account on Instagram called Instagram for Believers, and now the podcast host of Finding Yellow. I'll see you guys next time.